Dystopias, from 1984 to Fahrenheit 451 to the Midland train station. Societies in which totalitarian, even post-apocalyptic conditions exist side by side with conditions of great suffering and injustice. There is, however, one key difference that separates these three aforementioned dystopias from the dystopia covered in this video. And no, I'm not talking about empirical data, like crackheads per square meter. It's that over the decades, the truths depicted in these wretched places has only become more distant, being tied to the periods they were written in, often pertaining to their context, strongly influenced by the growth of communism in the East and the Nazis during World War II at the time. And unfortunately, despite Transperth's attempts to appeal to today's youngsters by releasing Midland Station 2, sequels are kind of a hit or miss, and never really hit the same. Now, this, however, is in complete contrast to Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World, written in 1931. The book, despite being written much earlier than other classic dystopian novels, has been able to achieve a level of relevancy in today's society that the other novels could just not achieve. Aldous Leonard Huxley was an English novelist and critic born on July 26, 1894, into a prestigious English family in Surrey, England, and was the middle child of his two brothers, Andrew Fielding Huxley and Julian Huxley. His grandfather, Thomas Henry Huxley, was a prominent biologist at the time, which led the three boys to take a strong interest in the scientific world. Aldous, however, unlike his two brothers, who became a physiologist and a biologist respectively, decided to do what all middle children do. Yes, that's right. Contract keratitis during his education at Eton and become partially blind. Unsurprisingly, this foiled his teenage dream of becoming a doctor, as apparently you have to be able to see to examine people. Luckily for our protagonist Aldous, he retained enough of his eyesight to read with great difficulty, and was able to graduate from Balliol College, Oxford, in 1916, after which he wrote his first book, which kick-started his strong devotion to writing before he settled in California in 1937. The 1930s were the height of Western technological optimism and enthusiasm, being in between World War I and World War II. Naturally, Huxley picked up on the excitement surrounding the rapid technological and scientific advancements being made and thought, what if there was too much though? Like the massive sci-fi nerd he was, he went on to then write A Brave New World in 1932 whilst living in
Sanary-sur-Mer.
Sanary-sur-Mer, France, being a satirical criticism of the widespread beliefs in technology's capabilities in remedying the suffering caused by disease and war. Huxley, unlike the rest of his peers, thought that this trust and reliance was naive, and used A Brave New World as a vessel to challenge these idealistic views, using a healthy spoonful of exaggeration, anxiety, and some good old pessimism. Huxley also drew some inspiration from the Pavlovian conditioning experiments from 1897, which were portrayed as human conditioning in Brave New World. The Brave New World depicted in A Brave New World is that of a totalitarian society in which there is no individual liberty. This, from the surface, sounds like every other dystopian novel. However, unlike the other girls, this novel has several key differences. The suppression of individuality and the control that is forced upon the citizens is not done via means of torture, surveillance, and instilling fear, but instead through science. Just like in the real world, the world state uses advancements in technology, psychology, and biology to, in essence, convince its citizens to love slavery. By using psychological conditioning, the world state is able to retain a strong grasp on its citizens by providing them with constant sources of pleasure or satisfaction of desires, whether that be through sex, drugs, or consumption. Industrialist and consumerist ideals are also taken to the extreme. Humans are produced like big pens, and the state uses conditioning, surprise, surprise, to make everyone have oniomania, or what's better known as an addiction to being broke. This is done by making it so old clothes are constantly thrown out, and by making it so only complicated forms of entertainment, such as complicated sports, are the preferred pastimes. Activities like reading, for example, are refrained from, as passive activities like that don't make the economy's wheel spin. But kind of get it though. I don't want to hang out with nerds. As can be seen, Aldous Huxley, through this portrayal of the future, had successfully mocked and bullied people's hopes into becoming a techno-gadget loving bunch of geeks. As expected though, no one likes a party pooper. Unfortunately, very few upon its initial publication understood the novel's philosophical implications, and the novel was received quite negatively by the masses. And despite my ever unwavering disagreements, teachers and parents claim its themes of promiscuity, self-harm, and overall negativity towards the future is dangerous to kids, which has led to many schools and libraries banning the novel. In fact, according to the NewAtlantis.com, George Orwell, writer of 1984, said that Huxley's novel was a brilliant caricature of the present that probably casts no light on the future. He even accused Huxley of plagiarizing Yevgeny Zamyatin's My. Largely, people had problems with the novel not only because it had the anti-progression sentiment, but because of the idea that the society could be controlled this way seemed to be too far-fetched. Dictatorships and totalitarian states in the forms of Mussolini's Italy, Nazi Germany, and the Soviet Union had made dystopias in Orwell's 1984 and Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451, which depicted control through surveillance, fear, and suppression, are much closer to home reality. Many other critics hopped aboard the Huxley hate train. In fact, here are some examples. As a prophecy, it's merely fantastic. Gerald Bullitt, essayist. An unforgivable offense to progress. Wyndham Lewis, writer. With war in Asia, bankruptcy in Europe, and starvation everywhere, what do you suppose Aldous Huxley is worrying about now? Yeah, that's right. You smell like Huxley. You dumb faced piece of stupid of I. Granville Hicks, Marxist literary critic. He did, in fact, end his review with several personal attacks directed at Huxley. Despite the initial reception of A Brave New World being somewhat dubious, the moral ambiguity presented in the novel has always been a point of contention for readers. Like, who cares if I don't have rights and I'm essentially worthless as an individual? I could be huffing homos or something like Soma? I don't know what it's called. No one's really being persecuted, and everyone's happy. I'm sure you're thinking that too. And that's exactly the future Huxley feared, a future of subservience to technology and pleasure. As we've progressed technologically and scientifically and whatnot, Huxley's predictions of society obsessed with quick fixes seems more like a not-so-shocking fact than fiction. In hindsight, Huxley's predictions and fears make a lot more sense. Technological advancements have made living leagues more comfortable and convenient for the average person. Accessibility to entertainment alongside development of large-scale worldwide media access has prioritized easy pleasures. Recreational drug use is slowly becoming less taboo and more of a social normality. The increasing prevalence of advertisements and the need to fit into certain images communicated via social media are driving consumer culture to new heights. These parallels between the culture of A Brave New World and the world we live in is kind of jarring. You might be thinking, but Will, they're much more far gone.
We don't have orgy porgies, and I still hate my job.
And if you're not thinking that, sue me. But just as the people from Brave New World, thinking this way is a failure to think of the contrary. Most of the time, our society, just like theirs, fails to notice what's missing and what's wrong because, in some ways, our society is conditioned to not really care about what that kind of thing is. That stuff could very well be happening to us, but it isn't, so we don't really care. Though our society may not be at the level of the world states, it's hard to discount Huxley's predictions as ridiculous. I'll admit, I'd be a hypocrite if I did. I play video games all day, and if that isn't easy and trivial distractions that keeps me subservient, I don't know what is. Social media is literally created with the sole purpose of getting people addicted and coming back. Scrolling through meaningless, cute animal videos, skibbity toilet, and brain rot. Brain rot. And what do we say to that? Come on, keep that dopamine flowing. Stuart McMillan puts it well when he says in his comic Amusing Ourselves to Death in 2009, Huxley feared we would become a trivial culture, preoccupied with some equivalent of the feelies, the orgy-porgy, and the centrifugal bumble puppy. Now, as a professional Gen Zer, I can say for certain that some of the things we produce, some of the content we produce is so trivial that we laugh at or enjoy things that at their cores have no meaning, no punchline, and no substance whatsoever. Just like Soma or the Feelies from A Brave New World, it feels like sometimes things are manufactured in a way that provides outlets of pleasure without providing any meaning to distract us from our discomforts, to keep us coming back. And not only this, it isn't the government that produces these things, or some weird organization. It's our society itself. They're called memes. Funny ha-has, even. That sounds incredibly Brave New Worldy, if you ask me. Huxley's novel, though misunderstood and clowned upon initially, has aged like a fine wine. His predictions only seem to become more truer as time passes, as we find more ways to relate to the fun-loving world state. Though his vision of the future at the time was viewed as one of those times your local schizophrenic would tell you one of those stories, his scarily accurate predictions of our contemporary society deserve at least some kind of credit. Huxley remarked in Brave New World Revisited, regarding the civil libertarians and rationalists, they failed to take into account man's almost infinite appetite for distractions. And in a way, this somehow feels like Huxley's way of sticking up his middle finger at the haters as he looks upon our society from heaven or wherever else he decides to hang out these days, telling them, I told you so.